When I ask you, what are some common coaster models out there, quite a few come to mind. Vekoma Boomerangs, B&M Hypers, Aero Loopers, Gerstlauer Eurofighters, RMC Hybrids. There are so many out there that were successful that parks want to order. Then, there are the oddballs. These are the coasters out there that may be successful in their own right, but their model just never caught on despite coming from a major reputable manufacturer. We're not talking about weird knockoffs here. With all the research and development the manufacturers put into these new models, you have to think selling between 1 and 3 of these is considered a big failure. Despite that, today I want to give them some love. These are the top 20 coaster models that never caught on. Before we get into the list, let's talk about the models that seem dead but have been recently revived. The Chance Hyper GTX. When Ed Hart saved Kentucky Kingdom from destruction in 2014 following a 4-year closure, 2 of their coasters had been plucked by Six Flags and moved to other parks. This was disappointing, but the big new draw for the newly reopened park was the world's first Chance Rides Hyper GTX. With a price tag of just about $7 million, Lightning Run was the perfect coaster to announce the return of Kentucky Kingdom, featuring a compact layout with lots of airtime. Its cost-to-thrill ratio is definitely in its favor, costing less than 1/3 of what a B&M would cost. We are finally seeing a new Hyper GTX come to Mattel Adventure Park in Arizona, but it's a different model, having a launch and inversions. The Vekoma Flying Dutchman. During that first coaster war that hit its peak at the turn of the millennium, Vekoma was trying to keep up with the likes of B&M and Intamin with something new and innovative. The big thing for the year 2000 was the Flying Dutchman, the best attempt ever made at a coaster that simulated flying. This was stealth at Paramount's Great America. Six Flags would order 2 for the 2001 season. One went to Six Flags Ohio as X-Flight, and the other went to Six Flags America as Batwing. Batwing would be the only one to operate at its current location from the start. The other 2 were relocated and eventually scrapped. Vekoma's big splash into the coaster war only yielded 3 sales, and that paled in comparison to the highly successful Intamin Mega Coaster and the B&M Hyper and Flores models also being sold at the time. Vekoma had a one-off flying coaster experiment in 2009. We'll talk about that later, but it seems like the Vekoma Flyer is back as of 2020, introducing their new age launch flyer, Fly at Phantasialand, and I do expect this to pop up at parks around the world over the next 5 years. The Vekoma Tilt Coaster. This is the ultimate clickbait coaster, and one of the most visually shocking things that the general public and even coaster enthusiasts will ever see at a park. The first installation came in 2002 at Taiwan's Discovery World. The train locks into place on the tilt track. Then, the track tilts forward and lines up with the track below, and then it releases you into the rest of its course. The rest of the course is pretty irrelevant. There is less than 2,000 feet of track and it does have an inversion, but this is all about the novelty of the tilt track. The Chinese company Jinma has recreated this over the years with some of their coasters, but Vekoma went over 2 decades without installing another one. In 2025, we are seeing a rebirth. 3 set to open around the world. 1 at Cedar Point, 1 at Codaland, and 1 at Six Flags Qiddiya. 23 years after the original, the tilt coaster has made its grand return. Last one, the B&M Family Invert. Known for the thrill coasters, B&M tried their hand at 2 family inverted coasters starting in 2014, both coming to Happy Valley Parks in China. For years, these were the only 2, and in the past 2 years, this has really taken off. 4 more either opening or being announced. Busch Gardens buying one for each of their parks, and Legoland doing the same for their 2 new parks in China. Based on the reviews of Phoenix Rising, this may have roughness issues and parks may shy away, but those who love B&M and their reliability may seek this out when they need a new family coaster. Number 20, the Zierer Spinning Coaster. When a park wants a spinning coaster, they can look to some popular German manufacturers, Mach Rides, Gerstlauer, or Maurer. You wouldn't think to look to another German manufacturer, Zierer, but that's what Friesett Lake Gieselwind did in 1994. Their one and only Zierer spinner was called der Gondelbahn, which translates to revolving gondola track, a very creative and descriptive name. Its figure 8 layout features only 328 feet of track and the cars spin throughout the course, and that includes a tunnel. Zierer came out with a spinning model well before the other German manufacturers came out with theirs, as this debuted in 1994 and we wouldn't see the first Mach spinner until 1997, the first Maurer spinner until 2000, and the first Gerstlauer spinner until 2004. There was another similar model that Intamin created in 1995 called the Twist and Turn Coaster, but this was another model that didn't really catch on. Just 3 installed between 1995 and 2002. This Zierer model was much less extreme than the others turned out to be. This was almost like a stretched out SPF spinning family coaster. Number 19, the Vekoma Bermuda Blitz. The one installation as of 2025 is Let Coaster at Poland's Legendia, a coaster that is beloved by the coaster community with nothing but rave reviews, and this debuted back in 2017. Let Coaster stands 131 feet tall and has less than 3,000 feet of track. But Vekoma is yet another manufacturer that has been proving that bigger isn't always better. It's all about what you do with what you got. Let Coaster cost Legendia 12 million euros. That's about 13.4 million US dollars, so it's not going to break anyone's bank. Let Coaster is entering its 9th season, and no other Bermuda Blitz has been announced. Vekoma did introduce their Wildcat model in 2022, which is a similar model, and as of now, these stand alone, but there is plenty of time for these to spread around the world, as long as parks are willing to pay for a coaster that may be a bit hard to market. Number 18, the Morgan Mine Train. The Mine Train model was especially popular in the 60s and 70s, and that market belonged to Aerodynamics. There are some other manufacturers that have done some work with mine trains, like Zamperla and Vekoma, but there was one other company that got in on the action, but just one time. In 2001, Aero was tied up with a couple projects, their 4th Dimension Coaster X at Magic Mountain, and the 700-foot fish hook coaster that never materialized at Las Vegas' Stratosphere. Gilroy Gardens in Gilroy, California looked to a different company for their mine train. This was Quicksilver Express, and they chose a company that was used to building much larger coasters. In fact, this company was just a year removed from building the world's tallest and longest coaster with Steel Dragon 2000 in Japan. The company was Morgan. Generally, Morgan will build you a long and decent hypercoaster, but apparently they can build a mine train also. So, Gilroy Gardens is left with a really nice and rare model that everyone should go check out. Number 17, the S&S Family Inverted Coaster. S&S has been building coasters since 2001, and they are one diverse company. You got air launches, you got woodies, you got 4th Dimension coasters, but one of the most simple coasters they've ever built came in 2018, and that was the Family Inverted Coaster at Dutch Wonderland, called Merlin's Mayhem. I got to ride this in 2024, and it was very good. 1,300 feet long, good forces. It is listed at $7.5 million. That's a bit steep for a family coaster, but the quality is there. Other parks around the world have had 7 years to look at this and decide if they want one for themselves, but so far they haven't taken the bait. S&S has worked on 10 projects since Merlin's Mayhem opened, but no family inverts. Meanwhile, since this opened, Vekoma has opened or is working on 16 family inverted coasters, so maybe S&S just isn't competitive in this market, and that's too bad. Number 16, the S&S Screamin' Squirrel. This model has gimmick written all over it, and it looks like something a 5-year-old would mock up when designing a coaster on paper. After the lift hill, this thing goes into 3 saxophone elements, where the track wraps under itself and the rider is left hanging upside down for a long stretch of time. Then it hits the next stretch of straight track and does the same thing over again. It's a one-trick pony, but that trick is something you don't see in other coasters. S&S was on a roll with these, building the first one at Italy's Gardaland in 2005, the next in China in 2006, and took an untraditional approach to their 2007 installation in Russia. This coaster only had a 10-year run before it closed in 2016. It's been 18 years since S&S installed another Screamin' Squirrel, and unfortunately, only one is still around, and that hasn't operated in over a year, that being Man-O-War in China, so our chance may already be gone. Number 15, the Intamin Aquatrax. In 2003, Lotte World in South Korea got Atlantis Adventure, 35 billion won, or 24 million US dollars. This has an amazing setting, themed as a journey to Atlantis. Riders sitting in 8-person boats, having an LSM launch lift, tight elements, sharp drops, water bombs, water jets, waterfalls. This ride actually looks super cool, way better than the mock water coasters, but unfortunately, this is the only one. Good news is, it's still open, but once this is gone and the model is extinct, and for whatever reason, cost, availability, reliability, when it came to water coasters, Mock Rides has 13 in their catalog and Intamin got shut out. Number 14, the Intamin Suspended Catapult Coaster. Intamin is always out there taking chances, and in 1998, they built a coaster that shot riders out of a volcano. This wasn't even the most interesting part. It was the first suspended coaster to feature a launch, and this would be deemed the Suspended Catapult Coaster. This idea would morph into the Intamin Impulse Coaster, and that was popular between 1998 and 2003. But nobody ever bought another suspended catapult coaster that wasn't in the form of an impulse coaster. Given all the problems Volcano had, it was probably for the best, but given how popular Volcano was, maybe some other park could have really benefited from it. Number 13, the Mylar Wild Mouse. When you think of a Wild Mouse coasters, you're thinking of 3 or 4 manufacturers. Mock Rides, Maurer, Aerodynamics, even Zamperla. There's also Vekoma, but let's save that one for just one more minute. E&F Mylar is all about kids coasters and janky airtime machines, but they did build one Wild Mouse, this starting off at Casino Pier in New Jersey in 1999. This looks like a basic mouse, just with a twist. And after Superstorm Sandy wrecked this pier in 2012, it was moved across the country to Sacramento, California, reopening at Scandia as Crazy Dane Coaster, celebrating 10 years at its new home in 2025, standing as the one and only E&F Mylar Mouse. Number 12, the Vekoma Wild Mouse. Okay, it didn't take long to pay off that tease. We talked about all the manufacturers that made bank selling Wild Mouse coasters, and back in 1985, Vekoma tried their hand on it, but only once. Speedy Gonzales would make its debut at Austria's Wiener Prater before spending a few years at Alton Towers, and then moved once more to Pennsylvania's Idlewild in 1993, where it still operates today. If you want a rare credit, one with a tilted lift hill, make the trip to Idlewild and ride Wild Mouse. Number 11, the Togo Cycle Coaster. You don't get to ride too many coasters that are apparently self-powered, and this at least gives the illusion that you pedal your way through the course. The track doesn't pull any crazy maneuvers, but given the nature of the cars, that can't really be the case. Togo only installed one of these, that being at Inakio Wonderland in Japan about 25 years ago. This looks interesting for the novelty of being self-powered, but doesn't look too thrilling other than that. Number 10, the Vekoma Big Air. Back in 2010, Vekoma created their version of the Intamin half-pipe, this being the Big Air model, and it was massive, standing over 200 feet tall. It was built at a park in Taiwan with an impressive-looking statue as a centerpiece. Instead of a launch, it has a catch car lift on one side. When it opened, the cars also spun, but apparently, after a few years, that stopped working. This defect may have been one of the reasons this model was never recreated. Number 9, the Giovanola Inverted Coaster. Giovanola was a company that did track work for Intamin, but designed a few coasters of their own. The best known ones are a pair of hypercoasters in the Six Flags chain, including what was the world's tallest coaster for a few months, Goliath at Magic Mountain. But they also did one other coaster, an inverted coaster called Anaconda at South Africa's Gold Reef City. The track looks like it would be a B&M, and the first half of the ride mirrors a Batman the Ride clone, having a loop, zero-G roll, and another loop. But the second half kicks off with a helix around some rockwork, and then back-to-back corkscrews. Unlike B&M, it also features 2 across seating. This looks like an intense and interesting ride, and offers a unique credit as the only inverted Giovanola coaster. Number 8, the Intamin Suspended Looping Coaster. Just like Giovanola, Intamin tried their hand at the inverted looping model to combat B&M and Vekoma in that department. They built their first suspended looping coaster at Parque de Atracciones de Madrid back in 1999, and that featured 3 inversions, this being called Tornado, and their second try at this was also called Tornado, this time at Finland's Sarkanimi Amusement Park, opening in 2001 and featuring 5 inversions. Both of these are still in operation, but are the only Intamin suspended looping coasters ever created. Number 7, the Zierer Tower Launch Coaster. In 2007, the German manufacturer Zierer introduced something that I had never seen before. It's certainly nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was a launch coaster that propels you up into a vertical lift before flipping you over to dive straight down. Honestly, I wish other manufacturers took a crack at this. Wicked at Lagoon has a launch top hat, and that's one of my favorite elements of all time. There's nothing quite like that feeling of that force at your back as you're facing straight up, before the airtime pop as you crest and dive back down. Sadly, Wicked was the only tower launch coaster Zierer would ever build. They built another tower coaster 8 years later with Impulse at Knoebels, but without the launch, it isn't the same. Number 6, the Vekoma Stingray. 8 years after the last installation of their Flying Dutchman, and 11 years before trying to revive their new flying coaster model, Vekoma unveiled another attempt at the flying experience. This was a much shorter and compact version of their Flying Dutchman, and it was called the Stingray. It seems like this could have been very popular, something easy to clone and taken up a small footprint, but there was only one sold, called Stingray and located at Giant Wheel Park of Suzhou in China. It only featured about 1,200 feet of track and 2-car trains on a super compact footprint, and kinda reminds me of an Intamin Zaxspin the way it weaves on top of itself. Despite its unimpressive stats, Stingray was important because it was among the first to feature the new Vekoma track style that would be the wave of the future, paving the way for the renaissance of Vekoma less than a decade later. Number 5, the non-launch Premier Rides coasters. Premier has always been about the launch coasters since Flight of Fear debuted in 1996, and of the 35 coasters, only a few had standard lift hills. One of their earliest coasters from 1996 was Runaway Mountain at Six Flags Over Texas, an indoor coaster reminiscent of Disney's Space Mountain. In 2001, Premier also debuted their water coaster, Von Capitis, at Finland's Lennonmäki, which closed in 2017. Their only other water coaster was Buzzsaw Falls at Silver Dollar City, which was later converted to a launch coaster by S&S. So, of the 3, the only non-launch Premier coaster still out there to ride is Over Texas's Runaway Mountain, a surprisingly forceful indoor coaster. However, they've been teasing a spinning Wild Mouse coaster on New Jersey's Steel Pier since 2022, and it may even open this year. So, if it does, add one more to the non-launch category. Number 4, the Intamin Reverse Freefall Coaster. In 1996, Intamin wanted to break the 100-mile-per-hour barrier, and they found the easiest possible way to do it. Launch a car up to 100 miles an hour, and then throw it straight up to a 400-foot tower to sap it at all its speed. This was the very definition of a gimmicky coaster, so it's no wonder only 2 were built, both in 1996 and 1997, these being on opposite sides of the world from each other. One went to Magic Mountain as Superman the Escape, and the other went to Australia's Dreamworld as Tower of Terror. It didn't make a lot of sense for other parks to order a coaster like this that didn't break any new records or barriers, so 2 would prove to be enough for the reverse freefall model. Tower of Terror closed at the end of the 2019 season, and it was just announced that Superman is done also, so this model is already extinct. Number 3. The Intamin Space Diver. This unique and portable model was introduced at Six Flags Great America in 1985 as Z-Force, and it was part of the short-lived Six Flags Ride Rotation program. Six Flags Over Georgia would enjoy this coaster for 3 years before it moved to Magic Mountain as Flashback in 1992, and that's where it lived out the remainder of its days. It closed in 2003 and was dismantled in 2007. There was never another space diver model to carry on its legacy. This was it, and now it's on the scrap heap. Number 2. The Intamin Wing Rider Coaster. Long before Thunderbird at Holiday World, Intamin had released her launch wing coaster with Furious Baco at Port Aventura in 2007. This launches riders from 0 to 84 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds. This thing is a speed machine. I have also heard it's very rough and gets mixed reviews. Intamin has had some problems with their coasters having a rattle, and with these speeds in the wing seating, I can see how this could be a problem. This could have been the reason why no other park has ordered one. Another reason could be this was built back in 2007, right before the economic crash, and by the time the park started to recover, the Intamin Wing Rider was old news. Number 1. The SNS Freefly Coaster. This isn't to be confused with the ever-popular SNS Free Spin Coaster. This is more of a family coaster model, where the track can invert, but the cars never do. Instead, the cars will just flip from one side of the track to the other. It's definitely a gimmicky coaster that doesn't look all that thrilling, but it's such an interesting concept. Only one was installed, Tranen at Skara Summerland, Sweden, and that was all the way back in 2009. Another downside is low capacity. It can only fit 4 people per side, so 8 people per car, so this may be the only one of these that will ever exist. Despite being on the other side of the world, I got to Skara Summerland in 2023 to ride the one and only SNS Freefly coaster, but it was broken down, and despite their best efforts, they couldn't get it open for us. So I most likely lost out on my one and only chance to ride one of the world's weirdest models. That's a wrap on this video. Let me know if there were any models from major manufacturers that I didn't discuss here. Keep in mind, I wasn't looking at knockoff companies and the weird one-off models. Just major companies that theoretically would have liked to sell more of these models, given the money they invested in development. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. And if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I want to thank my Patreons. If you want bonus access, bonus content, and have your name listed at the end of each video, check my links below and join. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.